Boo! You just got to wake the machine up, sorry. Sorry. Good morning. My third to last Sunday. Down south. I'm going up north. It's actually Pentecost in 3 Sundays' time. That's 2 weeks, isn't it? Yeah. I'm on the Sunday, so in 2 weeks' time we'll have had Ascension Day and then Pentecost. Now, what's it all about? Religious intolerance for a start. Oh, dearie, 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 dearie me. I don't want that to be the theme, actually. I haven't got a theme today yet. Love God, I don't know. Love your neighbour as yourself. The 2 commandments. Where is the love? For whatever reason, I have time on my side. Yes, I'm often up in the small hours of the morning, but basically I can just please myself. I do not have to go out and work in a conventional manner. So essentially each day is a magical mystery tour I can do with the constraints, particularly of COVID, obviously, but at present, but pretty much as I please each day, which has its upside, but it also has difficulties. So I found myself looking into the sort of early Christian centuries, and of course obviously there was Rome, the Roman Empire, which was throughout Europe and North Africa. Not so much France, was it? I think the old French resisted rather more. I don't need that thing anymore. It just helps me think first thing in the morning. And as usual, I've had the heating on. It's actually a lot milder here in England. And it's so notable. I look out of this window. Obviously trees with leaves. And wind direction then is apparent. That way is south and that way is north. And 2 weeks ago, everything was being blown willy-nilly from the south north, so it was mild, and then for a week at least, it totally just flipped. And it was coming, when I look on the weather app, all these blue arrows coming down from the Arctic. And obviously the leaves going the other way. Now we're back to southerly winds, so warmer, milder, good. But still, it's, anyway, so then I come indoors, obviously, and it's Right, why can't we do this? I know that my Redeemer liveth. This is Handel's Messiah. I have known this all my life. Basically, I can hear God calling me when I was as young as 14 or 15 years old. Then at 30 plus, whammo, I got married, whammo, properly, normally, middle-class bunny suits and tailored suits and good leather shoes and motor car and a horse and dog and cat and a nice wee hoose and all the rest of it. And a child came along and that was wonderful, and it all went belly up. So then the next 30 years have been personal hell. So I'm definitely no saint. My son committed suicide at the age of 18, for those who don't know by now. He would have been 20 would 29 this November the 12th this year. And that is totally, utterly awful, and there we are. And I accept God's will in my life. And through the latter 3/4 of my adult life, I know that my Redeemer liveth, and all I want to do is share. I've got this love within me. To me, Christ is living within me. Well, what good is it if I keep that for myself, for heaven's sake? The world's a mess. It's always been a mess. I mean, right from the get-go, for heaven's sake. Awful American expression. Sorry. Whoever it was, the first Roman emperor who was converted to Christianity, and and it spread, and etc., and then the Western Roman Empire, and then the Holy Roman Empire through into the 1400s or whenever that collapsed. Empires fall. The only kingdom that will ever continue forever is God, through Christ, Christianity. Now, religious intolerance. I know what I know. Well, if I know what I know, what's the point if I say, oh, maybe, or possibly, or it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be a little bit grey here, a little bit pink over there, a little bit yellow over there. Absolute codswallop. I know that my Redeemer liveth. I am a Christian. I am a jealous God. Thou shalt have no other gods but me. That's it. No argument, no discussion. Awfully sorry. Now, how not to come across like that in general? That's the tricky bit. And I do work very hard at that. Not to ram my deep Christian faith down the throats of other people. Anyone who tries to do that to me, woe betide. So, albeit deeply held, it is also deeply held in check. So I was watching that stuff about basically the Christian centuries, and no wonder people are turned off. Essentially, there's hardly a century goes by without some Pope of the day asking for money so he can fight another war against someone else. It's an organisation of man right from the absolute start. Quite frankly, no, that's not. I think initially it was very imbued with the Holy Spirit, and has been periodically through the centuries, obviously, inspired by people of very deep Christian faith and the Holy Spirit. That is also clear. But anyway, my finger's found yet again. If you go to the Royal Institution site on YouTube, there are just any number of beautiful lectures on all matters of science, but I'm particularly interested in sort of cosmology and astrophysics and deep space and the Big Bang and what happened before the Big Bang and when will the universe end. So this chap talked on. So if you put a 10 and then you put 100 above it, so 10 to the power of 100 light years, whatever this, I don't think there's a word for that figure. Apparently all the stars will have burnt up all of their energy and it'll all collapse again, and was there a universe before this universe? And they simply do not know. They're aware that the mathematics defines down to 10 to the minus 43, so that's 1 on the top, a line, and 1 on the bottom, and then a 10 with but 1 with 43 zeros. But they can't get down to what's called T0. And they don't know. This chap kept saying it on and off through his little talk, what happened before the Big Bang. And all I'm thinking is, I'm a Christian. I'm only here for 70 years and 70 years, my allotted span. That's why I'm not in top physics. It's too sort of off there. In the world now, here and now today, there's suffering, there's goings on, there's the manufacture and sale of arms. This friend of mine in Spain has just reminded me about the monstrous abortion rate in the world. It is the biggest killer by a country mile. Whatever the figures are, 73 million in 2019 estimated, 53% of the deaths. Ischemic heart disease is the next sort of main medical killer, and that is, I think, it's either 11 or 16% of all the deaths, etc., and diabetes and, I don't know, alcoholism is another one. And its effects, smoking and so on, cancer, etc., etc. But actually abortion, right now there are abortions going on. And then that whole subject, so I'm not getting into that. I know that my Redeemer liveth. This is partly another friend of mine who's foolish enough or whatever and kind enough to engage with me. Right. I can see clearly, and in part I can see clearly because I have not allowed myself to become a part of the big organized society about myself. I've made decisions in my life which have kept me in the world, but not of it. Initially, I was training to be a medical doctor at Bristol University, in fact, so I'm a very bright chap too. But I stopped my medical training and I went off, and I've been going off ever since. I'm not a priest in the Church of England, and I'm not a Benedictine monk through the Roman Catholics. Again, for reasons which have taken long, hard decades to come to, soul-searching decades. But that means I'm independent. I live in this country, England, and it sorrows me that I see around me such a lack of faith. Now, God has given me, through my personal life, I readily admit that, the utter tragedy of my own son committing suicide, broken marriage, but he's given me a rock-solid faith, you see. So even with a good brain, I don't have to question, is there a God? I know that my Redeemer liveth. I know Christ is living within me. I know. Well, then I must share that in an appropriate manner. My blood is half Scottish, it shows in the touches of red that my age leaves me. The old grey bits. A Scottish Highland preacher, I can see and hear him now, and he's banging on about the wailing and gnashing of teeth and fiery furnaces and everything. The words are there, especially in the Old Testament. Christ doesn't actually really. He does speak of these things, but not in the way that the Old Testament does. There is going to be a final reckoning and a second coming of Christ. I have no doubt about that, whether it's in my lifetime or not. Now, I feel with this COVID-19 in the last year and a bit, that's part of the birth pangs of the end times, Armageddon. I may or may not be right. Never no mind. Here is the one day I have to live in. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow hasn't happened. Let the woes of today be sufficient unto the day, or words to that effect, paraphrasing Christ. Well, What are my woes compared to the woes of countless people throughout the world now, and the injustices that they've suffered and all the rest of it? I've been given this blessing of suffering. That's how I see it. I choose to see it like that. And it's this suffering up here. Incidentally, I've also got a broken leg and acute heart failure. So the old body is showing signs of wear and tear as well. But the stuff up here is infinitely worse. Anyway, blessedly, this love of God through Christ has deepened and strengthened within me through the decades. Amen. Do commandments.